Hey, how's it going? I came across a method last night with regards to folding these ingots that really worked out well for me, and I wanted to share it because I've had some questions about them, and I know people are going through them. I've used a lot of different methods, and so one of the things that I have done, you can see over here, are this tape. So I'll literally just take, and I get this usually from like the dollar store. And then I stage the tape here. And what that does for me is that it basically reduces the amount of time I spend putting down and picking up this tape dispenser. Now, why would that matter? You know, it's because each one of these ingots has two pieces of tape on it, as such. Right. So if I spend all my time doing like this, that's time not spent actually folding the ingot, right? And you may notice that these are not perfectly square or anything like that, and they don't have to be with the folding pattern that I'm using. Because normally these could just be squares in the center, right? Silver squares, gold squares. The point is to create an ingot of the old Chinese style. And this is a pretty close approximation to what that is with a folded item. You essentially are puffing up the bottom of it. Sorry, I've done this with paper. I've not done it with one of these yet for a while. To make it look like the old Chinese ingots, right? Or close enough. So we would then fold these on in, and then this would then be offered to them as an old ingot. Now, the ingots, you would just cut these off, and they would look actually pretty similar in size. So if you buy ingot paper, right, you're going to get a little square like this of gold or silver or something similar. And quite frankly, I can buy this Mylar a little bit cheaper than I can do other things. And so I can choose gold or silver. But this particular one, it is see-through. You can kind of see that there, right? But on here, it works pretty well. So essentially, I could sit and cut all these small amounts out into little squares that I then have to glue or tape down really well. And quite frankly, it's just a lot easier to do something like this. These are 3.5-inch squares, which we then just kind of fold into an ingot. And if you don't tape the squares down, these things are going to go everywhere. They kind of are anyhow, but it's much, much worse. So it essentially, what we're doing is we're reducing our time trying to get something usable that in the end we're going to burn, right? So we get the ingot folded, and we would just push this part out, reverse fold the bottom part coming in. So why the video? Why not just go ahead and stage the tape like that? Well, there's a better method. I got this tape at the dollar store, right? That's where I get most of my tape. But if you can look here, those are very different sizes, right? So I'm like, all right, well, I just bought some of this. So how am I going to use it effectively? I just picked this up today so I can show what I've normally been using. So what can I do that is actually effective for that with this tape that would reduce the amount of time basically reduce the amount of time I'm not literally folding an ingot, because that's where all the labor goes. And so I came across this method the other night. Essentially what we're doing is you're taping, this is a baking stone. So I know I'm not going to cut it, right? So I'm essentially taping this edge here. The tapes, yeah, you can see the tape's about done here. So we'll just go ahead and do that and cut it. Okay. All right, so we have this edge sitting out right here. And if you remember those flyers when you go to a restaurant or something like that where you can just tear off the thing, we're essentially doing that same thing, but we're going to do it with a pair of scissors. So we just cut, and you can kind of already see, normally it doesn't do it quite that bad. It becomes easier to tear. I'll stick in my hand. So essentially what we're doing is we're cutting just small slits. These become our pieces of tape, right? You don't need to cut them all the way through though. And that's where you're going to save time, right? So once they're cut like this, you can literally just pick one of them up and it peels off, right? Doesn't take a lot of tape to keep these things down. So you can save on resources, you save on time. Here, we'll just pick up the next one, see? Bam. I know, I may sound like it's some like kind of jackpot or something like that. Boom! But no, not quite. But it also does help with the folding too, because when the tape is that thick, it just gets kind of a bit, it gets really unwieldy actually with some of these folds, because sometimes you want to place the tape a little bit differently depending on how well you cut them. And if you haven't figured out already, the greatest amount of time you have put into this is actually preparation and not the folding of the ingots. See? All right. So, they're all different types. I've worked out very different methods. This is, for example, just one box that has 630 of them in it. Keep a little notation. You should probably do that too. Each one of these is 10. All right, so do them in 10s. You can see, all folded up, ready to be burnt. So depending on the type of tape that you have, you can work. Now, when I originally started doing this, because these are making my own, they're the other ingots that I have like kind of like reverse and unfolded and reverse folded, right? That I bought online, and you don't have to make them. You can buy them if those are available. I can get them from AliExpress. But if you are going to make them, which in my opinion makes them more valuable because it takes up one thing that we only have so much of in our lives, and that's time, right? I mean, time is the most finite thing that we have. So these, in my opinion, are probably more valuable because they take more time, effort, at literally every step. Like these come in sheets of like 2 feet by 3 feet, and you got to cut them. And for those, I use these large industrial scissors I have here. I think I got these from, I don't know, Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. They are thick scissors, really good for cutting numerous sheets of Mylar at once, right? Mylar is pretty cheap on Amazon. I'll have to look, but your prices are going to be different than mine. But I still have, that's a drop in the bucket, right? I still have a lot of this to do. So improving my methods here is pretty important to me because I spend time every night, every weekend, hours. So out of the 14,000 and change ingots that I have, yeah, here you go, 528 remaining as of today. So you see my little tally marks. So if you're going to make your own ingots, I would suggest considering this. Like if you have a bunch of packing tape like I used to have, it takes forever to grab the scissors, cut the tape. You got to cut that in half. You could still, once you've cut it in half, you could lay it across like this and then do this method and just go strip, 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 and then it'll work really well. But, you know, it's kind of up to you. So, whatever surface you use, though, if it's like a table or something, you know, I would clean it every so often so that way it doesn't get all gummed up and stuff. But As you can see, I think wait, not everybody has access to my thread in there because they don't necessarily want the public knowing everything. I don't put any secrets in the Mailchimp thread that I use, but you know, I mean, there are some things that are a secret, but this is not. This should be publicly available. And if you, I mean, it's pretty close enough, because by the time we get this folded, it's largely not going to matter much, right? So you aren't going to see the outsides. You aren't going to see the sides. And the folded thing usually, but if I have, actually, I want to illustrate that too. Having a corner available makes it really helpful to do these, because if you use a thick, if you look where this is, if you use a thick piece on here, it might cause some folding issues there, just making it more difficult to do. All right, you won't get quite as tight of a fold. Now, do you need that? Well, technically no, but I'm not going to go through every one of these that I've done and then snip off these edges to make it look 100% real, because it's going to get burnt, right? So there you go. I really want to just highlight this method. If you have smaller tape, you can stage them on the sides here. You stage them on the sides here. Like here's what I did earlier. Already cut. The video didn't keep, so I will literally just be stripping those things off and using them, which will save me a good amount of time. So I hope you found it useful. Of course, if you aren't making ingots, it probably isn't, but there you go. But I'm not going to go through every one of these that I've done and then snip off these edges to make it look 100% real, because it's going to get burnt, right? So there you go. I really want to just highlight this method. If you have smaller tape, you can stage them on the sides here. You stage them on the sides here. Like here's what I did earlier. Already cut. The video didn't keep, so I will literally just be stripping those things off and using them, which will save me a good amount of time. So I hope you found it useful. Of course, if you aren't making ingots, it probably isn't, but there you go.